All right, guys. So, what we're doing today, I'm going to be changing the jets in this carburetor. Reason for it, when I put it on my other manifold, it was running lean, and in addition to running lean, it was not. I was not having full adjustability with my mixture screws and whatnot. Now that other manifold that I have in there, it creates a stronger draw on the carburetor, and was causing this to run a little bit lean. So I'm going to see. Well, let me tell you. First thing I did was I was running a little bit lean, so I was like, okay, how can we give it a little bit more fuel and see if we're going in the right direction here? So I went to a smaller, the next size down of metering rods. And I did find that it made a little bit of increase in my drivability, but it didn't fully give me what I wanted in terms of adjustability with this thing. So at least that tells me I'm going in the right direction in thinking that I need the larger jets. So now that I have that confirmed, obviously those are pulled out, and we're going to get to taking this apart and changing those jets. Tools you're going to need for this smaller Torx bit. This is for I needed that to get in here and be able to remove these screws to remove my metering rods and springs. Larger, this is a 25, which fits in there well, so we're going to need that to remove the cover. But then I also have my tiny little needle nose, because these friggin' pins are so damn tiny that you need to be able to find something where you can get in there without having to manhandle it or bend things in order to get your needle nose in there. So and what I'm doing, I'm just removing the linkages that are going to stop the top of the carburetor from coming free once I release these screws. So, and I'm trying to keep everything together here, just because I know where all these linkages and pins go, but I don't want to have to wrestle and struggle with setting them up again once I get everything in there. And I don't know if you're able to see this, but basically I was also on the strongest pump shot, and that all seemed to help. So I am thinking that I'm correct in the fact that we're going to have to get into some larger jetting here to restore my full ability to adjust for AFR. Alright, so now that the top is off of there, here's the top sitting there. Came off no problem. The one thing I did not mention before, which I want to mention, is in order to do this, you're going to want a small-ish flathead screwdriver that you can use to get in there and break free these jets. In addition, you're going to want a pretty fine set of tweezers so that you can reach in there and just pull this thing out without difficulty. Alrighty. Well, that is that. The other tool that I didn't mention before, but it's nearly essential for most of us, readers. A pair of reading glasses. These are, they came out of my toolkit. They are a bit dusty, but reason for it, there are numbers that are stamped onto your jets that you're putting in. You need to be able, you can read them accurately because these numbers, they're that frickin' small. I don't even know at that distance if you're able to tell that there's numbers on there. But there are. I just grabbed this as an example. That is definitely not what I need. That is huge. Now, once you've identified your proper jets, this is also handy to go set those back in place and even adjust them if necessary, because this has not been threaded in yet. And I am using no force. I am just letting the threads find their seating. I don't know if you were able to see, but on that one, this one here, driver's side, it was not perfect. I actually had to back off and start again to let the threads find their place. But this should require no force until you get I'm gonna get a larger screwdriver actually, because this, I'm afraid, this is just brass, and I'm afraid if I torque it with this, it's a little bit thin diameter wise, and I don't want to take a bite out of it, so I'm going to get a larger screwdriver. So I've got a larger screwdriver, not much larger, just a hair, but I think that'll help me to feel more secure. So, and went ahead and wiped them off so I'm not introducing any gunk. Okay. All right, now for the big decision. Do I change the secondary jets? Well, I was in fact trying to find out whether or not, trying to decide whether or not I wanted to go about changing these rear jets, and what I'm finding is they're tightly in there, and with the screwdriver that I have that I was using, for whatever reason, this was fine on the primaries. On the secondaries, these are really in there, and they're only brass. It just, when I get a feel for it, I think I'm going to take a bite out of those using this screwdriver. So for now, I'll have to just let it go. I can go back in there and see what we have to work with adjustability just with the primaries. So anyway, that should be fine. It shouldn't cause a problem really. So just because my secondaries are working, they just I was having trouble with adjustability, and that's all on the primary side. So at least at idle, that adjustability is on the primary side. So let me go ahead. I'm going to get this thing back together. It's just the same process in reverse. I'm not even going to have you watch me do it because you've already seen it. It's the same thing. Only thing I'll remind you of is these these screws, these bolts that we're using, these are not heavy duty, and they're only going into aluminum. So don't wrench them down. Just get them there, get them to where they stop, and then just give them a little snugging all the way around. And I do this in a, I don't know if it's necessary, I've just always done it. Do it in a cross bolt pattern the same way you would if you're trying to center a wheel or torque a wheel. Reason for that, this is only aluminum. I don't want to crack anything, I don't want to warp anything. So just evenly put the pressure down. I will have you watch me place this back on there. It should just drop quite straight down, just vertically onto there. The only thing you want to be sure of is you want to make sure you get your accelerator pump plunger all the way in there, and then I'm not forcing this, I really just want it to drop into place. There you go. So there you are, it's just dropped into place. And the reason for that, I know all these parts are just brass, the floats and everything, even the retainers that keep the floats in place. So if you come up against resistance and you're pushing that, you're going to screw something up. So just take your time, because if you've got to dive in here and change parts, that's, it's a delicate procedure, but it's a whole bunch more time. So just use your head. Now, another reason why I say reading glasses are an essential thing for this. If you're not familiar with this, or if you haven't done this before, these metering rods, they have a stamped number on them that's referenced on this chart that I'm going by to richen up the fuel flow just a little bit. And if you think they're hard to see on the jets, my God, on these rods, they are tiny. There we go. There we go. You see how I just got that tight, and then I give it just a little snugging. I don't really even tighten it down. I just make it a little bit more snug just to make sure it doesn't go any place when I don't want it to. So we're touching. Everything is still lined up as it should be. So it stopped, and then I'm just barely giving it a snug down. That's plenty. That's all you need. All right, so that's it. The carb's back together, as you saw, and some of you might wonder why just to let you know, why I didn't bother filling the bowls or anything prior to putting the top back on, and it is quite frankly, once the top's on, I'm gonna be filling the bowls through these vents here. Um, I don't know. That's just the way I've always done it. Never had a problem with it, so I'll be doing it again on this guy. But I'll get this in there, and then I'll show you guys the startup. Hi guys. I know I think at a point earlier in the video I had said I was going to show you startup and everything, but obviously I have omitted it. She's great. Startup went great, and there was some steps to adjust her beyond there, and this video got too long. So just to recap and give you an idea of the steps I went through to get her to where she is now, and give you my impressions. As I said, put her back together, started right up, she's running. Adjustability was a little bit better. It's just so dumb, but I'll just, if she was adjusting this much before, she was adjusting this much now, and okay, that's great. There's definitely a difference, but I didn't like it. And the reason I don't like it is because I want full adjustability. Full adjustability means you're able to bring it down into where you can really adjust for that sweet spot. If you have not enough adjustability in your mixture screws, that means that all of a sudden you don't have as wide a range that you can play with timing. You don't have as wide a range that you can play with RPM. It all just has to fall into just kind of a weeny bit of adjustability. And with this, that's not a power manifold, it's an efficiency manifold. You need that wide adjustability because you got to dial it in. Otherwise, you get in, and fine if it runs strong, fine if it runs, efficiently. But it's like without adjustability, you're always just going to feel like, no, it's strong, it's fine. What do you not like about it? It feels weird to me. I know this engine. It feels weird to me. It feels like it's outside where it's supposed to be. So, anyways, so I was stoked to get it back to be able to adjust it. But, like I said, increasing that jetting, I went with the metering rod also that the calibration kit suggests to pair with that jet. And I gained back a little bit of adjustability. And then I was just like, well, I don't want to change the jet again. Let's see what happens if I go back to the stock metering rod. So stock metering rod was just a hair thinner in diameter than that suggested metering rod. So I went back to the stock metering rod. What this does, just to recap, I am using one step up in the jet size, and I went back to the stock size of the metering rod. And what that allowed me to do was that really opened it up to where now this is like normal adjustability. So I'm like, fantastic, great. This means I can play with timing. This means I can play with my RPM and really dial things in. So I did, and I gained back. I'll tell you a little bit about what I did. I ended up backing. Let's go in order. I got 2 inches more vacuum at idle. So where she was strong-ish in that little narrow thing, now she's quite strong. With that being said, she was so much stronger at idle that I'm like, oh great, I get to back off RPM a little bit. So I backed off RPM a little bit, where she was idling at around 800. That's where I set her, but truth be told, she always kind of fell somewhere in the 810 to 820 kind of resting state. I backed her down to she's somewhere between 760, 770. So yeah, so I've backed off the idle RPM, and she's smooth. And just to test how smooth and strong she was, it's one thing that you get sometimes with a carbureted engine is if she's hot, you'll go, and if she's not adjusted right, you'll sit, with your foot on the brake at a stoplight. In Southern California, this is completely possible. You can be at a stoplight for anywhere from 5 minutes to sometimes, I know it's ridiculous, but you can spend like almost 10 minutes at a stop sign in some areas in Southern California. So I just took her to a parking lot and sat there with my foot on the brake for better part of 10 minutes. Nothing. No stumble, no little, sometimes you'll sit there with your foot on the brake and you're 4 or 5 minutes in and she'll lurch on you just a little bit because she's the stumble in fuel. Didn't have any of that, so I was very happy. So that's where she stands right now. She is feeling good. She's feeling better. She's feeling stronger everywhere. But I wanted to talk about this, and I want to do so quickly because it's a big subject. But I have wondered since the get-go with this manifold if she would run better with a smaller primary bore on the carburetor. I have as I said, this is a 650 CFM AVS 2 carburetor that's in there. On the shelf, I had a Carter, and it's a Carter, it's not an Edelbrock. This is an old carburetor, but I have it sitting on a shelf. It's been there for at least 2 years now. And I think it was a little bit dirty because I stuck it in there, and it took a few minutes to get it to run to where it would just run without my assistance. But once it was able to do that, I took her around the block, and I've got a big block. It's just the way things are situated. For me to go fully around my block, it's like 2 miles. So, and there's straightaways there where I can play with her and see what I think. And she was impressively stronger everywhere with the 500 CFM carburetor. Now, that opens a discussion of, is that CFM or is that the small primary bores? And the screwing around I did was practically, yes, I dipped into the secondaries a little bit, see what I thought, but that difference that I'm feeling, I am fairly certain it was all primary, on the primary side. So I'm going to take this to extremes. I think my next steps for Dodgy here is that I'm going to try out the Streetmaster 625 from Holley. It's a 625 CFM carburetor, obviously, but it's got 1 3/8 primaries, which 1 3/8 primaries, that is, I believe that's the same size primary that was in the original thermoquads. And what's nice about the Streetmaster, part of the reason I've decided to do that rather than something else, is it's got those small primaries and this big goggle valve secondary things, but it's arranged in a square bore. So if I buy that carburetor and I don't like it on this combo, I can use that, because it's a square bore, I can use that on any of my other manifolds. Because quite frankly, if I wanted, I could go with the thermoquad. I am one of these people who actually likes thermoquads. I think they're cool. I could put that on this, but I wouldn't have that interchangeability of being able to use it on other things if I don't like the combo. So, at any rate, that's what I'm going to be doing next. I'll do a full video of that, and I may do a before and after to see whether or not the any changes are visibly noticeable, or if they come across on camera. But at any rate, what's the takeaway from all of this? SP2P, if you're going to do it, get ready to do a bunch of messing around with things you didn't think you were going to be messing around with. Overall, now that I have done some of that messing around, I like this manifold more this week than I did 2 weeks ago. I'll tell you that much. It's I won't say it's a night and day difference, but this feels like I'm beginning to figure out how she's supposed to run. So there's that. I hope you find this helpful. Obviously, this is a lot of screwing around on my part. So if you like these videos, if you find them helpful at all, please like, please subscribe. I wasn't expecting to have the kind of success I'm having on some of these videos, but now it is looking like if I continue, I may be able to monetize this someday. So who knows? Maybe a year from now, I can cash a check for $30. So it'd be helpful.